In our last episode, we saw the death of Sarah and Abraham's grief. This led to the purchase of some land to set up a grave site for her. Genesis 24 and 1. Now Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. Abraham was old. Well, I would say even when we started out hanging out with Abram before he was Abraham, he was already old. He was leaving his father's house. He was older than Sarah, too, and she died at 127, so yeah, he is pretty old. He had his son when he was like 100, so he definitely is an old man, well advanced in years. And the second part, the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. I guess longevity was definitely one of them. And I think he had a lot of great materialistic wealth as well when it talks about him getting paid off and some of his shenanigans for the abduction of his wife. He made some profit that way, but I think he made a lot of other business dealings as well. So he was definitely a very wealthy man. But he was probably his greatest wealth was in spirituality. His relationship with God and just his faith in God was absolutely incredible. That, I think, is truly the greatest wealth of Abraham, was his relationship with God. Genesis 24 and 2. And Abraham said to the eldest servant of his house, Eliezer of Damascus, who ruled all the land that he had, I beg of you, put your hand under my thigh. This is not our first time seeing Eliezer of Damascus. As we recall previously, when Abraham did not have an heir, Eliezer of Damascus was going to be his heir, and Abraham was kind of complaining about that, not having a son or someone to inherit that came from his own bloodline, and God kind of hooked him up in that. So we do remember Eliezer of Damascus, and he would have been someone of high rank and standing within the house of Abraham. As it says, he is the second in command, ruled all over what he had. And then we have this last part here. Put your hand under my thigh. Genesis 24 and 3. And you shall swear by the Lord, the God of the heavens and the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I have settled. So the hand under the thigh is some sort of ritualistic oath-making system. I don't know whether or not this is a specific thing for swearing an oath to God or some sort of cultural thing to swear to the leader of the house, or some sort of combination in this instance where he puts the hand under the thigh and then that's his oath with Abraham, but as well as to God as kind of the witness to the oath. So I'm not entirely sure how that is going down, but it was definitely a ritual to symbolize this oath and this swearing that Eliezer of Damascus is going to do the things that are agreed upon in the oath. So this is all in reference to finding a wife for Isaac, his son. And the wife cannot come from the Canaanites. I don't know if this was an Abraham thing, that maybe he had some sort of bias against the Canaanites or saw what they were like and figured he didn't want his son being a part of that, or if God gave him a little bit of more information to persuade him not to go that route. But this is what he gets this man, Eliezer of Damascus, to agree to. And he's going to send him on a journey to find his son a wife. Genesis 24:4. But you shall go to my country and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac. So Abraham doesn't want a wife that's from the Canaanites in the area that they're currently at, so he's going to send him back to the old country. The old country to find a wife for his son Isaac. Genesis 24:25. The servant said to him, but perhaps the woman will not be willing to come along with me to this country. Must I take your son to the country from which you came? I think this is a reasonable assertion on the part of Eliezer of Damascus. What if I go down there and find the perfect woman for him, but she doesn't want to leave, she doesn't want to come back? Maybe if I take Isaac with me, he's a big strong lad looking cool, maybe that'll be a little bit more persuasive. Of course, Abraham's not going to have any of this. Genesis 24:6. Abraham said to him, "See to it that you do not take my son back there." There are a myriad of reasons why it would be bad to take him back there, and Abraham's justification right here is quite interesting. Genesis 24:7. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house, from the land of my family and my birth, who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, "To your offspring I will give this land. He will send his angels before you, and you will take a wife from there, my son." We've been talking about Abraham here for a few chapters now, quite a few actually. And for us, it's a couple chapters, whatever, it's no big deal. But for Abraham, during this time frame, this is decades of time, from the time that he has left his father's house to going all on those adventures, having children, burying his wife. This is a large amount of time. So Abraham has gone through a lot, and God has directed him through a lot of stuff. But God didn't do all this just so Abraham and his seed could just end up back where they started. That was not the goal, not what they had in mind. So preventing Isaac from going back to the land of the fathers is probably a good idea. The last thing you want to have happen is Isaac to go to the land of the fathers and just dwell there. And well, obviously that's not what happened, but you know, they didn't want that to be a possibility, and so Abraham was obedient to God and what God says to him in this line right here, that he's going to inherit the land, and this message he got from the angel, right? So they're staying put. The second part of this verse is really interesting as well. He will send his angel before you, and you will take a wife from there for my son. So he's going to get some divine help in the selection process of this woman to be the wife of Isaac. Abraham continues, Genesis 24:8. And if the woman should not be willing to go along after you, then you will be clear from this oath. Only you must not take my son back there. This is quite interesting. So he's going to go down there. He's going to find this woman. If she doesn't come back, that's okay. Just don't take Isaac there. So that's the big thing, is Isaac cannot go back to this land. It seems as if it's more important for Isaac to not go to the old world, to the old land, than it is for them to get a wife from there. Genesis 24:9. So the servant put his hands under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. So Eliezer of Damascus takes this oath, and he is now going to be obligated to fulfill it. Should point out as well that, seeing as we've seen Eliezer of Damascus mentioned way back when, he's probably a pretty old man at this point in time as well. He's not a young buck. He'll be an old man who's known Abraham for decades, and this has kind of been his faithful servant, right? And leading the household and looking after stuff for Abraham. Genesis 24:10. And the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking some of all of his master's treasures with him. Thus he journeyed to Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and the Euphrates, to the city of Nahor, Abraham's brother. So they're going on a journey. 10 camels, so a decent-sized grouping that probably went here together. And of course they bring in some treasures with them. They're bringing their wallet with them just in case they need it. And it's Nahor is Abraham's brother, so it's his brother's city, I guess. Genesis 24:11. And he made his camels to kneel outside the city by a well of water at the time of the evening when women came out to draw water. So what we have here is the old school way of picking up women by hanging out at the watering hole. This is the strategy that Eliezer Damascus is going to use, and he's going to use it to judge the character of the women that are going to be drawing the water. And what he is able to learn and discern from this is quite fascinating. Genesis 24:12. And he said, O Lord God of my master Abraham, I pray you, Cause me to meet with good success today and show kindness to my master Abraham. What an absolutely beautiful prayer. I don't really know what else to say, but his concern is not for himself, although he is asking for success today. His concern is for his master Abraham. And the one he is speaking to in prayer is the Lord God. So he knows of God through Abraham, and he wants Abraham to be prosperous and is praying for him. Genesis 24:13. See, I stand here by the well of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming to draw water. So here we go. Here is the strategy. He's camping out there, and he's going to see the daughters of the city, the daughters of the men, come out and draw water. So they draw water, they put it in their buckets or vases or containers or whatever vessels they use, and they haul the water back home. That was kind of one of the chores in the day back then, before we had running water in houses and taps and all that fun stuff. So a lot more work back then, and he's just camping out here to see. Genesis 24:14. And let it be so that the girl to whom I say, I pray you, let down your jar that I may drink. And she replies, drink, and I will give your camels to drink also. Let her be the one whom you have selected and appointed and indicated for your servant Isaac to be a wife to him. And by it I shall know that you have shown kindness and faithfulness to my master. So this is the plan. This is the multi-stage plan. And it's quite interesting. So he's just going to ask these women for a drink of water. And, it'd be one thing if they came and gave him water to drink, because, that's what he asked for. But it's quite another for them to bring water for the camels. I assume camels probably drink a lot more water than people, so the labor for that would be far more intense. So it's a multi-level, right? Either they bring water for him or they don't bring water for him. And then if they bring water for him, do they also bring it for the camel? Do they do a second trip? Do they go above and beyond what is initially asked? And this is all set up as kind of a fleece, a kind of a testing scenario, although we don't really get into the true fleecing till later on, and that's kind of a cool chapter too. I don't remember where that is. Anyway, so he's got these conditions in mind, and he's asking for God to show him who is the one to be the wife to Isaac by the one that completes the task as he described it to God. These women here, they don't know who he is. They don't know why he's there, and they don't know anything about the test that he set up. So they are neutral parties. And what he's looking for here is that God will be able to influence them or influence the world in such a way that that this is a good test and a way for him to find the right woman for Isaac. It's also a very good test of character as well. Genesis 24:15. Before he had finished speaking, behold, out came Rebekah, who was the daughter of Bethuel's son Milcah, who was the wife of Nahor, the brother of Abraham, with her water jar on her shoulder. Here we go. Immediately, right after, before he finished speaking, he's trying to figure this out, and what do you know? As he's thinking it before he speaks it, here we go. We have this Rebecca coming out. And then we have her lineage described. Obviously, he didn't know her lineage here, unless he knew her from beforehand. So this is for our benefit as the readers. Genesis 24:16. And the girl was very beautiful and attractive, chaste and modest and unmarried. And she went down to the well, filled her water jar, and came up. So there we go. We have ourselves our beautiful, attractive, chaste and modest, unmarried girl. Just what Eliezer of Damascus was looking for, going down to get her water. Sometimes your prayers are answered before you're even done saying them, and that's what I think is going on here. But we don't know if this is her yet. She hasn't gone through the test that Eliezer of Damascus came up with, so he's got to ask her for some water. Genesis 24:17, and the servant ran to meet her and said, I pray you, let me drink a little water from your water jar. Step 1 of the test. Genesis 24:18, and she said, drink, my lord, and she quickly let down her jar onto her hand and gave him a drink. I do kind of wonder if this is like one of those big like water jars that you see those videos of people like they have them on their head and they're like walking with them. I'm kind of wondering if that's kind of what the scenario is here, and it's just like a what do you call that, a clay pot or whatever, the vessel. Judging from the time of when this would have occurred, I kind of think that's probably what it was, not like a hollowed out stump or a wooden what do you call that, a wooden bucket, like a bucket. I don't think it was like that. I think it probably was more of a ceramic or a pottery style vessel. It was probably quite heavy, and I think she's almost like holding it for him to drink. So there we go. That's part 1. What about part 2? Genesis 24:19. When she had given him to drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels also until they are finished drinking. Here we go. This is looking good. She says she's going to do the second part. Genesis 24:20. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw water for all his camels. So this probably was a lot of work. He had 10 camels, right? So that would be a lot of water drawing for her to just say she's going to do it without being asked to. But in her doing this, she has completed what Eliezer of Damascus said when he was praying to God for a sign of finding the right woman for his son Isaac. So that's quite fascinating. Genesis 24:21. The man stood gazing at her in silence, waiting to know if the Lord had made his trip prosperous. I think he was watching because it was so much water to give water to all the camels, right? It's like, there's the first camel had enough water, and then there's the second one had enough water. And as time went, because this probably took hours, right? This wasn't, turning on the faucet and just putting some water in a bucket or something. This was like drawing water, carrying the water to the camels, getting the camels to drink the water, and going back and forth. And water, it's not light. So this was probably hours. He stood there watching her, with not helping her at all. I mean, he's probably an old man. No one would necessarily expect him to, but getting her to draw all this water for all these camels, just waiting. And he's got that hope in her that this could be the woman for Isaac, and it was probably a pretty wonderful experience. Genesis 24:22. And when the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold earring or nose ring of half a shekel in weight, and for her hands 2 bracelets of 10 shekels in weight of gold. Genesis 24:23. And said, whose daughter are you? I pray you, tell me, is there room in your father's house for us to lodge there? Eliezer of Damascus, I'm sure, was blown away by her. We have this charming woman who looks after the watering of all of his camels without being asked to. She draws him water because he asked for it, but she goes above and beyond, goes to the next step. Is very hospitable in her treatment of him and the party that is with him, and it's really kind of amazing. And then so he gives her some gold, some of the treasure that he brought with him, as well as inquires to who she is, where her father's house is, and as well a place to lodge. I'm sure it was a long journey getting here, and they were probably camping out every day and having a warm bed or a place with some shelter, a more permanent location would be very nice for him, as well as the party who was with him. Genesis 24:24, and she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, son of Miklah, and her husband Nahor. 24:25, she said also to him, we have both straw and provender, fodder, enough, and also room in which to lodge. So here we go, we have who she is, and we find out that they have enough room for them to lodge in. So Eliezer Damascus is going to be pretty happy about this, as we'll see. Genesis 24:26, the man bowed down his head and worshipped the Lord. 24:27, and said, blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not left my master bereft and destitute of his loving kindness and steadfastness. As for me, going on the way of obedience and faith, the Lord led me to the house of my master's kinsman. So Eliezer Damascus, he's probably blown away by all this that just happened, and he is giving thanks to the Lord for delivering him into this circumstance, and he is just super happy, super thankful for this situation and how everything's kind of played out. Genesis 24:28, the girl relayed to her mother's household what had happened. So she's run off now to tell her mother about what has happened, and she's got that gold with her and those bracelets or whatever, so she's got some stuff that lets her mom know when she meets her that she's not just making all this up, and we'll know what's going on. Genesis 24:29, now Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban, and Laban ran out to the man at the wall. Genesis 24:30, for when he saw the earring or nose ring and the bracelet on his sister's arms, and when he heard Rebekah his sister saying, the man said this to me, he went to the man and he found him standing by the camels at the wall. So the brother saw what was on her, and he went out to investigate to see what was going on. And when it talks about this earring or nose ring, I think that's a translational thing, that the word that is used for the whatever ring it is, it could be interpreted as one or the other, and we don't really know what it is. The whole cultural thing of earrings was different then than it is now. Now you would expect an earring more so that, well, actually I don't know, maybe nose rings are more popular now than before, I don't know. But his brother saw this, the bracelets as well, right? So he saw this wealth that was bestowed upon his sister, and he goes out there to see what's going on. Genesis 24:31, he cried, come in, you blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside? For I have made the house ready and have prepared a place for the camels. So the brother's getting Eliezer Damascus and the camels to come into the house. What are you doing out there? You need to be in here. Come on, let's go. Genesis 24:32. So the man came into the house, and Laban ungirdled his camels and gave straw and provider for the camels and water to bathe his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Bringing them into the house, unhooking the camels, giving them straw, looking after the animals. He's got water to wash the feet, and that's one of those Middle East things, right? There's very dusty soil, and your feet get really dirty or whatever, so it's a real sign of hospitality to do the washing of feet or whatever, to bathe the feet. I don't think he actually washes the feet. He just gives them the opportunity to wash them. It's, yeah. I guess it would be like similar to watching someone run a marathon and then handing them a towel. Same kind of generalized idea. Or a water bottle, whatever. Just something to give somebody that's gone through a lot. Genesis 24:33. A meal was set before him, but he said, I will not eat until I have told of my errand And Laban said, "Speak on." Eliezer Damascus here, he's gone on this massive journey to find this wife for Isaac. And he's getting there, he's getting close. And they put a meal in front of him. He's like, no, no, no. Let me explain first why I'm here. He's just gone through this whole journey. He's not going to wait. He's probably so excited. I mean, as we remember, he was originally supposed to be the inheritor of Abraham's household, right? And he got to see all this stuff going on beforehand, before Isaac was born, and probably all the troubles of Abraham and Sarah and the lack of conception going on there. And then he would have saw the bondswoman and Ishmael as well. Like, he has been on this journey with Abraham for quite some time. So he has been waiting for this forever. Genesis 24:34. And he said, "I am Abraham's servant." 34:35. And the Lord has blessed my master mightily, and he has become great. And he has given him flocks, herds, silver, gold, men servants, maid servants, camels, and asses. I don't know if they knew who Abraham was. I kind of think they probably did. I mean, these are his kinsmen, his family. I don't know how old Laban is, if he was old enough to remember when Abraham was around before Abraham left. But I'm sure he probably heard stories of Abraham. Because I'm sure Abraham was doing stuff before he was called out by God. And then we have Eliezer Damascus going into details about Abraham's relationship with God and just the blessings that he received and who Abraham is and what his relationship is with God. Genesis 24:36. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old, and to him he gave all that he has. So all the inheritance that Abraham is going to give, he's giving it to his son. Genesis 24:37. And my master made me swear, saying, "You must not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I dwell." 24:38. But you shall go to my father's house and to my family and take a wife for my son. 24:39. And I said to my master, "But suppose the women will not follow me." 24:40. And he said to me, "The Lord, in whose presence I walk habitually, will send his angel with you and prosper your ways. And you will take a wife for my son from my kindred and from my father's house." 24:41. Then you shall be clear of my oath when you come to my kindred, and if they do not give her to you, you shall be free and innocent of my oath. At this point, he has relayed the entire story of what has occurred and his conversation and his oath with Abraham and what his purpose is in being there. But he's not quite finished. He needs to relay a little bit more about his test that he did. Genesis 24:42. I came today to the well and said, "O Lord, God of my master Abraham, if you are now causing me to go on my way prosperity." 24:43. See, I am standing by the well of water. Now let it be that when the maiden comes out to draw water, and I say to her, I pray you give me a little water from your water jug to drink. 24:44. And if she says to me, you drink, and I will draw water for your camels also, let that same woman be the one whom the Lord has selected and indicated for my master's son. 24:45. And before I had finished praying in my heart, behold, Rebekah came out with her water jug on her shoulders, and she went down to the well and drew water. And I said to her, I pray you, let me have a drink. 24:46. And she quickly let down her water jar from her shoulder and said, drink, and I will give water to your camels also. So I drank, and she gave the camels also to drink. 24:47. I asked her, whose daughter are you? She said, the daughter of Bethuel, Naor's son, whom Machlah bore to him. And I put the earring or nose ring on her face, and the bracelets on her arms. 24:48. And I bowed down my head and worshipped the Lord and blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who had led me in the right way to take my master's brother's daughter to his son. 24:49. And now, if you will deal kindly and truly with my master, showing faithfulness to him, tell me, and if not, tell me, that I may turn to the right or to the left. So after relaying the entire story, telling them everything that has transpired, including the details of his method for determining who would be the right woman, he is asking them now to turn to the left or to the right. Is this going to be good or is this going to be bad? Are they going to allow her to become the wife of Isaac, or is she going to be forbidden from leaving her father's house? Genesis 24:50. Then Laban and Bethuel answered, the things come forth from the Lord. We cannot speak bad or good to you. They don't know if it's good or bad, or if he's good or bad, but they do know that this came from the Lord, and they're going to be obedient to that, as we'll see. Genesis 24:51. Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord had said. So they are going to allow her to be the wife of Isaac, and they are trusting him with her. Genesis 24:52. And when Abraham's servant heard these words, he bowed himself to the ground before the Lord. It does seem like he bows to the ground a lot. I don't think this old man necessarily likes bowing down. I think it is just his love and respect for Abraham and Abraham's God, the Lord God. They're probably all things that 30 years ago he never thought could ever happen. It's just a very emotional experience, and he's just very thankful. Genesis 24:53. And the servant brought out jewels of silver, jewels of gold, and garments, and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave precious things to her brother and mother. So he's distributing more of the treasures of the house of Abraham. Genesis 24:54. Then they ate and drank, he and the men who were with him, and stayed there all night. And in the morning they arose, and he said, send me away to my master. So he's ready to go. He's ready to move on. He's ready to go back home to see Abraham and bring this lovely girl with him. Genesis 24:55. But Rebekah's brother and mother said, let the girl stay with us a few days, at least 10, then she may go. I'm sure this was a very emotional thing, in that they met this guy the day before, and he's got all this wealth, and he gives all these gifts to them and to their daughter, and he is going to marry her to this man, Abraham's son. And he's ready to leave the next day in the morning. They have no time to really say goodbye, any time to do anything together, whatever. For the guy's sister and the mother's daughter, I'm sure this was quite the scenario. They're not ready for her to just be gone out into some land, who knows where, the land of Canaan, very far away. So it's quite an emotional thing, and they just wanted a little bit more time. Genesis 24:56. But the servant said to them, do not hinder and delay me, seeing that the Lord has caused me to go prosperously on my way. Send me away that I may go to my master. So Eliezer of Damascus, he's here. He's ready to go back. He doesn't want to stay there any longer. He's kind of got what he needs, and he is ready to go. He doesn't want to linger around for any more time. He wants to be beside his master and bring him the good news that he found, but I guess the news is a person. But Genesis 24:57. And they said, We will call the girl and ask her what is her desire. So the mother and the brother, they want her to stay for a couple days. And Eliezer Damascus wants to leave right away. And I guess we got that second part of his conversation with Abraham about if she doesn't want to go, then that's it. Just don't take a wife from Canaan. So I almost think as if she decides not to go, that he would have to find somebody else. But we don't need to find out the end of that one, as we see here, Genesis 24:58. So they called Rebekah and asked her, "Will you go with this man?" And she said, "I will go." So she agrees to go. She's ready to go. She wants to have this new life. Genesis 24:59. So they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, Deborah, and Abraham's servant and his men. 24:60. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, "You are our sister. May you become the mother of thousands of 10,000s, and let your posterity possess the gate of their enemies." They send her away. They send her away on good terms and with a blessing. Genesis 24:61. And Rebekah and her maids arose and followed the man upon their camels. Thus the servants took Rebekah and went on his way. So here we go. They're journeying back to where they came from, and they've got a couple extra people in their party. Genesis 24:62. Now Isaac returned from going to the well of Beer Ishtarol, a well of living one who sees me, for he now dwelt in the south country of Negbi. 24:63. And Isaac went out to meditate and bow down in prayer in the open country in the evening. And he looked up and saw that, behold, the camels were coming. So Isaac was down at the well, and he's come back, and he's out praying out in the country. And it's the evening, so it's late in the day, and he sees these camels coming. Oh, what's going to happen next? Genesis 24:64. And Rebekah looked up, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel. So she gets off the camel, so she's on the same level ground. Genesis 24:65. For she had said to the servant, "Who is the man walking across the field to meet us?" And the servant had said, "He is my master." So she took a veil and concealed herself with it. So she knows who this guy is, and she puts a veil to hide her face. Genesis 24:66. And the servant told Isaac everything that he had done. So now Isaac will be caught up to everything that occurred in this land of Abraham's fathers. Genesis 24:67. And Isaac brought her into his mother's Sarah's tent, and he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. I find the Bible very interesting when it comes to marriages, especially here in the Old Testament. Before we had all these religious ceremonies and all this other nonsense, especially modern day with like the government and tax breaks and all this other stuff all attached, and these crazy grandiose ceremonies, where here we see Isaac and the simplicity of what is marriage, and it's a lot simpler to understand, and maybe a little bit too graphic as well, so I don't know. It's fascinating. But what a journey to find a wife for him. Just trusting in the Lord that the Lord would provide, and going on this journey and having all this stuff happen, meeting the right person, having them agree to come back to Abraham's house, and it's just kind of a cool little story. I'm sure Isaac was quite stricken with grief, and just this whole event of having her comfort him kind of reminded me of what we saw in Genesis 2:24. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother, and shall become united and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So there's kind of that aspect to it as well, that you cleave to your wife or husband or whatever, and you know, you move on from your parents, just that aspect. So it seems to be that that helped him in his healing process after losing his mother.